Delighted to be joined by Matt Holland, Ipswich legend, Republic of Ireland legend. Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So, 654 career appearances, 78 goals at club level, played in and scored at the 2002 World Cup. Just going to tap into a few memories. I want to start with you've played with some great players, I'm sure. I just want to get your five-a-side team, the best players that you've played with. One goalkeeper, one defender, two midfielders and a forward. So who would you have in goal?
Crikey, how difficult is that to try and pick five out of the players that I played with? As you say, very fortunate to have been in some good dressing rooms, some good characters and some unbelievably talented players. So it's really difficult to narrow it down to five. Goalkeeper, obviously played with Richard Wright at Ipswich, who was a really good goalkeeper. Played for England, actually made his England debut whilst he was at Ipswich. But I'm going to go with someone I played with at international level, Shay Given. I often judge goalkeepers by the number of mistakes they make, and Shay was one of the most consistent goalkeepers in that respect. Made very, very few mistakes. An unbelievable shot stopper, 1v1. He was unbelievable. Great character, really bubbly guy. Brilliant in the dressing room as well. So I'll probably go with Shay Given in goal, I think.
And in front of him, you've got to pick one defender. We're going to go pretty attacking here. But one
defender. And actually, I'm going to go for a defender that's pretty good on the ball as well. I didn't play many games with him, and in this guy I actually was at West Ham with him as a kid. I then signed for Bournemouth, and he came on loan, and he was actually only on loan for about 8 or 9 games, maybe 10 games, and he did so well that West Ham got him back to go into their first team. I'm going to go for Rio Ferdinand at centre-back. He was such a good player on the ball. I mean, he just made things. He was a central midfielder, really, as a kid. I mean, he was so good on the ball. Eventually moved back into defence. So, yeah, Rio Ferdinand to get the nod at the back.
When people mention Rio, we see now teams playing out from the back. A lot of people say, well, one of the boys from the old days would be Rio who could cope with that.
Oh, easily. Absolutely. I mean, like I say, he almost took liberties at times. He was so calm and so you watch players now taking the ball inside their own box and using the goalkeeper as the extra man. I mean, he'd have been absolutely perfect in that respect. But he would take liberties at the back, dribble past centre forwards and come into midfield as well. You know, we see that a lot as well. You know, with Man City, like John Stones coming into midfield, he's that type actually, a John Stones type. Yeah. You know, you could see him fulfilling that role for any side. Yeah, he was, and again, really confident. He was probably 18 maybe when he joined Bournemouth on loan, but it was like he was 30. He was one of the most composed players in the dressing room. So yeah, Rio Ferdinand was top class. He'll get in the team quite comfortably.
And right in your wheelhouse, in your position, 2 midfielders that you would have played alongside.
Yeah, definitely not me. I mean, I'll go with Roy Keane probably first. Roy was probably the biggest competitor that I've ever come across. His will to win, whether it's a five-a-side, whether it's a quiz, whether it's anything, was incredible. Berated players if they didn't give him the ball, but he had time on the ball all the time. Always made time on the ball. If you go through him as a player, you'd sort of say, is he the best passer you've ever seen, like long range? No. Is he the best finisher you've ever seen? No. Is he the best tackler you've ever seen? No. But you put everything together and he was a complete midfield player. I always say the one thing he was the best at was punching the ball, breaking the lines and getting the ball into the front man's feet, because he did it with such pace and ferocity. You know, he tested players' touch. When you got on international duty, he'd make sure he wrapped a ball at you just to test you and make sure that you could cope with the ball. But that ball that breaks the lines into a front man, he was the best at. But his willingness to win and the drive that he had was unbelievable. Scott Parker was a little bit like that at Charlton. He had that will to win as well, and he'd sort of kick you in training and treat training as much as he would a first team match. But Roy was another level. So
and a Tottenham fan, so we welcome him into the team. Yeah.
Yeah, Roy Keane in midfield, and then the next alongside him is really difficult. I don't know. You could go with Scott Parker, but then you've got 2 very similar players. I could go with Damien Duff. Damien Duff was, and he would probably be very much a five-a-side player. You couldn't get the ball off him. You know, you did in training. He just somehow wriggle through about 4 or 5 challenges and still have the ball. It was like how's he managed that? And he was incredibly talented. I'm probably going to go for Di Canio though. I'm going to go for a bit of flair, someone who could do a little bit of magic out of nothing. And again, just an unbelievable character.
Would he turn up on time?
He'd be on time.
Okay.
Honestly,
Yeah.
you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed with Di Canio how professional he was.
Right.
He was. I was only with him a year at Charlton. He was 35. He was first in for training. He was in the top 3, 4, 5 for the running in pre-season. He'd be the last one to leave the training ground. He'd be the last one to come off the training ground. Then he'd be the last one in the gym after training. He was one of the most professional. He was probably the most professional player I ever played with. At the age of 35, he was an unbelievable example to younger kids who because someone of his ability, you'd think maybe wouldn't need to do all that. But he had the ability and he also had the work ethic as well. And then did things in training that just made you go, wow. I mean, some of the goals that he scored, some of the things that he did, you just thought it's not possible for that to happen. So just for the pure X factor, I'm going to go for Di Canio in midfield alongside Roy Keane. That's quite a fiery partnership as well, isn't it?
Yeah. What was Di Canio like day to day, sort of
Brilliant.
away from football, because he seemed
Honestly,
like such a character.
He was such a bubbly character. Players loved him, absolutely loved him. And he could be difficult. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there was times in training when he wasn't the easiest. If he got a decision go against him in training and he thought it was an injustice, he would lose the plot. He'd lose it. I've seen him walk off the training ground a couple of times.
Because I always think of that West Ham penalty. Was it against Bradford when him
and Lampard?
And he sulked. Did he not end up taking it? And he had a massive sulk and sort of threatened to walk.
Yeah, he could sulk. He could sulk at times. Like things didn't go his way. Yeah, he could sulk, but generally, I'd say 90% of the time he was quite an upbeat character. The one thing what he didn't like was flying. He absolutely hated flying. And we used to fly to away games, particularly like say Newcastle or something, and he just absolutely hated it. I mean, he'd much prefer to get a bus up or a car up on his own, but he did do it occasionally. But he really didn't like flying.
But then equally about Di Canio, he caught the ball when the player was down. That's someone who's obviously got a good heart somewhere.
Yeah.
And he's got a big heart. He's definitely got a big heart.
And up front.
Oh, up front, crikey. Played with Marcus Stewart at Ipswich, who was an incredible player. Got 19 goals in the Premier League in our first season there.
Yeah.
But for Ireland, I'm going to go obviously one of your own, Robbie Keane.
Yeah, love him. Legend.
Again, a bit like Damien Duff in terms of his ability on the ball, his sharpness over 3, 4, 5 yards.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Matt, because actually one of the criticisms he would get was he wasn't quick enough. But actually,
no, he's not quick. He's not quick. He's not rapid.
Yeah.
He's not like if you to race him over 100 meters, I wouldn't beat him, but like a lot of people would beat him.
Yeah.
But his sharpness over 4 or 5 yards and that ability to sort of, I don't know, it starts in his head.
Yeah.
That's and he could just get away from people, and he's finishing as well. His calmness in front of goal. And again, his appetite to score goals as well. He was a phenomenal player. So and it's quite what I would say about that team. It's quite a feisty team. I do well to manage it. I do well to.
Well, who would manage it? Who's the best manager you played under?
Which manager? That's a good question. Again, I actually don't like picking managers because they're all very different and they've all got different characteristics. I sit on the fence a little bit when it comes to managers because. Some are really good coaches, some are good man managers. There's very few that have got absolutely everything. So I'd find that really difficult, really, to pick a manager. I mean, George Burley,
Roy Keane and Paolo Di Canio joint player managers.
I'll just let them do what they want. I'll manage it. I'll manage it, but let them just do what they want.
Just on Robbie Keane, do you think he was a bit underrated at times? Because some of the sort of goals and assists he got for us were real, moments of genius.
Well, yeah, I mean, possibly. I mean, look at he's got a record now for Ireland that I don't think he'll ever get beaten.
No.
His international goal scoring record is unbelievable, and he went for a lot of money to a lot of different clubs. Played at some amazing football clubs. I don't know who underrates him.
He just doesn't get talked about in the top Premier League players.
I think if he'd have stayed at Liverpool longer, because look, Spurs are a big club, no doubt about it, but
they're not Liverpool.
We're not Liverpool, and that's probably the one bit where it takes him from. And I think he's one of the most brilliant forwards of the Premier League era. And internationally as well that time. But also, had it been Liverpool and won a trophy at Liverpool, I think that cements it because he did win a trophy at Spurs. But from one of the great goal scorers to yourself, Matt, as Johnny said, you scored 78 career goals, but probably tell us about one of the things that puts you into the highest echelon of footballers of scoring a goal in the World Cup. Tell us about the goal and actually the World Cup generally and what it's like to be out from a month, with your teammates and everything.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's the highest accolade, isn't it, to play at a major tournament and particularly a World Cup. If you're a kid growing up and you're watching it, for me, probably I'm thinking 82 probably was the first World Cup I really remember. Some of the great players, the Brazilian teams, Zico, etc. Adair, some of those players, you just watch it and then you're in awe watching some of those players. And then to have the opportunity to go and play at a World Cup, it's just a pinch yourself moment, really. And then to score in the first game. I mean, we played Cameroon in the first game. To score at a World Cup is sort of like you can't actually compute it, you can't digest it. And at the time, when you score, I just completely lost it, because it's one of those moments in life where you can't quite believe what's happened to you. So yeah, it was 1-0 down against Cameroon. Hadn't played particularly well in the first half. We'd had obviously the Roy Keane incident prior to the World Cup where he'd left the camp. So there was a bit of pressure on us, Mick McCarthy, to get a result. And second half we started a bit better. We got on the front foot. Kevin Kilban put an awful cross in. The centre half sort of slipped, headed it to me about 25 yards out, and I came onto it. And I think it might have been Robbie or even Damien Duff, because they were playing up front together actually in that game. One of them was to my right hand side, but I didn't really see it, if I'm honest. All I saw was an opportunity to shoot, hit it first time, caught it as sweetly as I'm ever going to catch one, and found the bottom corner, and yeah, the rest is history. So yeah, to play in a World Cup's a dream. To score, it's just something extra special. It's hard to explain how good a feeling that was.
And that was a top island side. I was just looking at it. You drew with Cameroon, drew with Germany, beat Saudi Arabia, and then you drew with Spain, but unfortunately went out on pens. That was a really strong side.
Yeah, it was a good team. Obviously, I've talked already about the five-a-side team. I mean, Duff and Keane obviously were up front in that side. I was alongside Mark Kinsella in midfield. We had Ian Hart, Gary Kelly, Shay Given in goal, Kevin Kilban, Jason McAteer. We had a really Gary Breen.
Niall Quinn would come off as well. Come off the bench, wouldn't he? He set up Keane's goal against Germany.
Yeah, the flick.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
He did it to good effect. I think it's Steve Finnan picked the ball up on the halfway line, and then that's the sort of plan B, isn't it? Long ball up to Niall Quinn, flick it on, and Robbie Keane, who was alert again. That little sharpness inside the box and a clever finish as well. So yeah, we Germany went on to get to the final as well.
Yeah,
we held them to a draw. So it was it was a good side we were involved in there.
But long ball up to a long ball is very much the as I grew up. My first World Cup was 1990. Not that I played in, but remember it. But that was a good old Jack Charlton tactics, and that old team from 1990 is real synonymous with it.
Yeah, that was
I mean, previously they'd sort of had Niall Quinn, Cascarino, if you like, up top as well. They had that type of player
Aldridge
where they could utilise that tactic very, very, very well.
I was just having a look at the squad. Obviously, Lee Carsley was in it. How pretty interesting person to be speaking about right now.
Did you think he'd become England manager?
Yeah, Lee was probably a bit frustrated. I don't think he may have got on in one of the games for Kins. I don't think he played a lot of minutes though at the World Cup, and it must be really difficult when you in a squad and you're away for sort of 5-6 weeks for a tournament, and you don't really get to participate. It must have been pretty difficult for him, but he was a really good character, Lee. I really liked him. And he had a bit of steel about him. You could tell a couple of times he sort of he spoke in front of the group, and you could tell he had something about him where he might well go into sort of coaching or management. So I'm really pleased to see him be successful now, because he was a really good guy.
Brilliant, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us, taking a trip down memory lane and hearing about your glittering career. And listen, to have someone on who scored at a World Cup is great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Really good
Thank you, Matt.
to speak to you. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Matt. Brilliant. Thank you, Matt.
Top man, mate.
Thank you.
Thank
Matt,
you.
can I just quickly ask where the Irish links come from?
Yeah, my grandparents were from County Monaghan.
Oh,
so,
fine.
yeah.
Was there ever a possibility? Did you play for England at younger
No,
level?
I never had any recognition at sort of youth level. And then Mick McCarthy rang me at home one day. I think George Burley had told him I was eligible to play for Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay.
He just rang me at home and said, "Would you be interested in playing?" And they had a B international. I said, "Yeah, absolutely." Went and got a passport and played a B international, and that was it. I was away.
Great.
So yeah,
And scored a World Cup, which is the coolest thing ever.
Ever.
indeed.
Lovely. I'll see you soon, Matt,
Right,
and enjoy
I've
Sunday.
got to go. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Matt.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
Bye-bye.
much. Thank
Bye.
you.
Cheers, guys. See you
Cheers.
later.
Bye.